Independence Day to one and all. Well, once upon a time, 61 years ago, the great Kwame Nkrumah said that Ghana's independence was meaningless unless it was totally linked to the independence of Africa. Total liberation of Africa. And we're saying now Africa is liberated. Has it made Ghana's independence any more meaningful? 61 years down the line, there are still a few number who would have wished that there was still a white-faced government. There's a dangerous number who would still say, oh, bring back the military to rule, because things are going bad. Social amenities are not equally balanced. Those in the cities get a good fair share, outside the cities, and you don't seem to be a part of it. The rich are getting richer, the poor are destitute to even survive. But we are still 61 years down the line. There's still peace. Beauty is Christians and Muslims cohabit as if nothing ever happened. Most countries don't enjoy that. We have chalked some successes and we've made some desperate bad mistakes. However, how meaningful is our independence? Anything that's good within the land seems to belong to those who own white faces, and those who are grafting and hustling nuts are those who have the black faces. The rhetoric now has been good. Ghana beyond aid. Sometimes you have to dream big and work to achieve it. Sometimes you don't even know how you achieve it, but at least you started talking about it. However, we are 61 years old today. Was it worth it, or could we have done more? The answer is yes, we could have done more. But what could we have done? My name is Nana Ansakwa IV, Chief of the Little Republic of Akwemu Edumasa. And when I come back, I'm talking to a fine gentleman. We'll talk a thing or two about our independence. Don't go. Thank you very much for staying, and we are trying to find out that now that the continent is totally liberated, is our independence any more meaningful to us than when we did not have it? Well, with me in the studio is my senior brother, Andrew Awuni, former spokesperson to former President John Agyekum Kufuor. Andrew, you're welcome.
Thank you very much, Nana.
And I must say, this is for God and country to, leave your home on an independent evening,
yes,
and come and share with us.
Yes.
We owe you too.
Thank you very much.
So Aisha, we owe Andy too.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you. You're welcome, and happy independence to you.
Thank you.
Andy, it's a conversation that I've been thinking, and I'm glad you're here so that we can talk about it. But it's independence now any meaningful to us now that the continent is liberated?
Well, I'm not too sure when you say the continent is liberated, whether it's the kind of liberation that Osagyefo was referring to. Now, if we go strictly by what that famous quote that has caught on worldwide, our independence is meaningless unless it is linked up with the total liberation of the African continent. Now, total liberation can be looked at from different perspectives. If you say total liberation, are we talking about the independence as in granting people the political liberty to do to rule themselves? Because then, like you said, the continent is almost totally in terms of the political independence. Everybody is running his or her own country at this stage. Is that what Osagyefo meant when he said the total liberation, unless our independence is linked up with the total liberation of the continent? Is that what he meant? Or he meant some other kind of liberation for the continent? Because as we all know, whilst he was talking about total liberation of the continent of Africa, he was also looking at the African unity. And then, of course, he had reasons why he thought that Africa should unite as one United States of Africa. Was that part of his total liberation of the continent? So yes, it's something we can all look back and then begin to discuss. But if on hindsight, I would say meaningless perhaps was a little bit exaggerated, because Kwame Nkrumah himself, who made that statement, was our prime minister at the time, and it was the first time a black man was going to play that role as leader of government business. Now that cannot be said to be meaningless. That the black man was now in charge of his own affairs, that cannot be said to be meaningless, even though the whole continent was not liberated. Yeah, so from my point of view, on hindsight, in the spur of the moments, Osagyefo could have made that statement, our independence is meaningless, with some burst of emotion. But on hindsight, I think that it was a little bit exaggerated. Whether the continent was totally liberated or not, I think what we achieved on the 6th of March was definitely meaningful.
It could be, you see, we have developed this culture where we seem to appreciate things on paper. But then you leave the paper and go on the ground, and it's a total different story. Could he have seen that, listen, all this we're doing here, all this rhetoric, yes, it's on paper, but on the ground, it may not be the truth, or it may not exist. And if you're not careful, you fall into this usual hypocritical habit where we seem to think, well, if we don't talk about it, it's not there, or if we're not pursuing it, it's not there, but you and I know that it's there. I'm saying this because, I mean, from the time Nkrumah declared independence, I think we have been more dependent. This is the time that we have been even more dependent. When there was white rule, at least there was sufficient from here to even feed the queen and still have some here. After independence, you know, there's been very little time where there's been sufficient here to look after us. I mean, so it could have been meaningless.
Well, we can make that argument. Could have been meaningless. We can make the argument that things haven't been better since we became independent. But then, if you look at it also, maybe we needed to do something fundamental about our independence, which we didn't do. But also recognize that Osagyefo himself began to talk about the neo-colonialist agenda right after independence, because he was smart enough to realize that these people were not just going to pack bag and baggage and leave us free to run our own affairs. What these people had done whilst they were here over all those long years was to set certain traps that made it impossible for you to totally escape. Those traps over the years have been tightened even more, to the extent that, yes, today everybody recognizes that we have what we call political independence. We have black faces in the castle or in the Flagstaff House. In government houses, we have black faces there. But we know that the traps that were set 60 years ago, those traps have become tighter even today, making total independence, total liberation a little bit difficult. Unfortunately, subsequent leaders have not really taken their time to untie those knots that would totally liberate us. Over these 60 years, and I'm using Ghana as an example, but it's not peculiar to Ghana, it's a continental issue, and I'm talking about the African continent. Over the years, our leaders have not really done anything to loosen those knots that had been tightened up. Institutions have been set up. I'm talking about international institutions, bilateral arrangements, multilateral arrangements. All these arrangements have been put in place to favor certain groups of people. We haven't done anything to untie them. We haven't done anything. And indeed, sometimes you can even work up to a certain point trying to untie. For example, in 2007, Ghana, for example, decided we had gotten to a point where we did not think we needed a certain Bretton Woods institution. And we actually declared that we're opting out. But then after a while, what happened? We got back in there. So it takes a certain skill, a certain determination, to be able to break free completely, because they are also making sure that you don't break free. That way they can always have you. For example, if they take the control of your energy sector, they can control the government, they can control the nation. If they take control of the water sector, they can control the government and they can control the nation. If they take control of the major levers of the economy, which they always try to do, now the struggle is not between them and us in terms of control over the major levers of the economy. The struggle is still the scramble for Africa. This time, they scramble for individual countries. So the British are here, the Americans here, and now the Chinese are here. Different groups of people are coming, and they are all trying to see which part do we hold. And when they hold it, they are not just holding it for themselves. They know they have you completely in their hands. If they have your energy in their hands, they have you in their hands. If they have your health in their hands, they have you in their hands. And they have succeeded in making sure that we always, even our annual budget, we sometimes have to go back 40%, up to 40% of our budget, annual budget, is sponsored by them. And at any time, they can read you the Riot Act and tell you that unless you do this, we withdraw our budgetary support. And sometimes what they may be asking you to do will not inure to your benefit at all. So I'm saying that over these years of so-called independence, our leaders haven't done anything to untie those nooses, the knots that have rather become tighter. And so I don't know. I agree that Nkrumah identified the neo-colonialist agenda right after independence. He knew this was the next stage of colonialism, and he had cautioned everybody. That came sooner than he expected, and it has become even worse at this particular point in time.
So, going back, what do you think what do you think was the liberation that he was calling for to make our independence meaningful?
You see, there are two. I can only guess. I wasn't there.
Yeah.
There are two. When he talks about the total liberation of the continent of Africa, some could easily limit it to, at the time he said this, there were several African countries that were still ruled by their colonial masters. Yeah. So it could be simply the type of independence that Ghana got on the 6th of March. Maybe that was what he was referring to, that Angola will become independent, Zimbabwe will become independent, Namibia will become independent, all these other countries will become independent, apartheid will be crushed, and then the black people will take over their own country. Maybe that's what he was talking about. But if we look at total liberation of the African continent, if we look at it from a broader point of view, he was not just referring to that political independence. He was referring, you see, it's not for nothing that the Chinese build a wall around their country. You see, when you are developing, and that is another mistake our leaders have made, when you are developing, you've got to decide what your priorities are. You see, but so Chinese build a wall, and they know we want to start with agriculture. We want to start with industry, or we want to start with, they choose. And then they pump their resources in those particular sectors. And they forget everybody. The Japanese, when I was a young man, everything inferior in this country was called Japa.
Japo.
Well, we in the north, we call it Japa.
Okay.
And so our mothers would pick two pieces of cloth and look at it and tell you, this is Japa. And this is the real thing. The Japanese did that deliberately. They locked themselves in. You see, sometimes for you to really develop, you've got to lock yourself in. We, unfortunately, were ushered onto the center stage. We did not even have the time to close ourselves in. We did not have the time to choose our priorities. And whilst we were thinking about technological advancement, we were busy on the football field as well. Whilst we were thinking about advancement in agriculture, we were busy on the music stage. Whilst we were busy, so sometimes you got to make your choices based on, you have a son, you have a daughter, and as your daughter begins to grow, you are building her up. What do you want to build her up with? There are choices you have to make, and those choices would limit her You know, not everything will be thrown at her. You will have to make choices. Even she, as she grows up, she will have to make choices. That's how you build a person. That's how you build a people. And that's definitely how we build a nation. Unfortunately, we just opened our fence. We broke down the fences and we said, we are building. What are you building? Today we are doing cocoa. Tomorrow we are doing gold. The next time we're doing something else. At the end of the day, we have a Makola that looks like what? A whole some chaotic mess. That's a market. Is that the kind of market you see when you go to Europe? Is that the market you see when you go to America? What did we build at Makola? Because nobody really built anything. Nothing is planned. It looks like over the years, anything that we get, we accept. So
let me divert a little bit.
Yes.
Will the Makola, our type of market, be linked to our culture? Can you, or it's not excusable?
What culture are you talking about? Are you talking about the Ghana culture, or you are talking about the Akan culture, or you are talking about the Frafra culture? You see, there's some point I have been making that people, maybe I haven't gotten to that stage where I will catch the attention of those who need to hear me. I'm a Frafra man. You are Akwemu and the Womba man, Ashanti man, all that. We all used to have our kingdoms.
Yeah.
All right? And I paid allegiance to the Bo Naba. Up to this point, I pay my allegiance to Bo Naba because he is my king. The Ashantis paid their allegiance to the Otumfo, you know, and so on and so forth. One day we woke up and we decided that we want to bring all these groups of people into one place, drawn out by the white man. And then we decided to call it Ghana. And therefore the Moshi man sitting at the border of Boku has been told that he's now called a Ghanaian. What we did not do was to birth the new Ghanaian citizen. To birth the Ghanaian citizen. We didn't birth the Ghanaian citizen. We just brought groups of people with different allegiances and loyalties and put them together in a geographical location we called Ghana. And people therefore do not owe any serious allegiance to this new geographical location you have identified for them. And that is why they still are attached to their religion. They are attached to their homes and their kings and their chiefs and all that. We didn't birth the Ghanaian citizen. So when you say the Makola situation, is it part of our culture? What culture? If we were going to introduce a new nation, that new nation had to develop its own culture. Culture that would sit in with the new civilization we were bringing in. That is not what we see at Makola. That is not what we see at our lorry station. You see, so President Kufuor decides to introduce the new culture, and you go to Achimota, you see the new bus terminal. What did it end up with? Do you understand what I'm saying? So I'm saying that whilst we decided to birth a new nation, we did not take our time to birth a new citizen of this nation and therefore a new culture of the new nation. So we all came with our different cultures, and then you go to Agbogloshi and people are still picking tomatoes from the ground, from the wet, muddy ground. And that is good enough for them. But this is supposed to be a civilized new nation called Ghana. That's the point I'm making.
Okay. So I think we go back to independence.
Okay.
At the time, I think Nkrumah proposed this AU idea that, listen, let's all come together and then become one strong nation. I don't know if he was also trying to link it to, the liberation and the meaning. But here we are, still don't trust each other. Borders are closed. Currencies are different. Economies are different. Allegiances are different. Those who go back to the Francophone, those who go to the English. How far away from this reality?
We are really very far. In fact, now it looks almost, I don't know, maybe not our generation. Maybe some other generation can pick it up and see what they can do about it. But definitely, he had very good reasons. I think that his level of intensity in the pursuit of this agenda was definitely stronger than what others had. Whatever passion other people had about an African Union government, Kwame Nkrumah had a certain intensity that sometimes was misconstrued for personal ambition. But you see, he was looking at the markets. He was looking at the American market, almost 300 million people. He was looking at the Chinese market at the time, almost 700 million people. Today, they are over 1 billion now. Was looking at the Indian market, the Asian market. That's another huge market. So he was saying to us that if we really want to become relevant in this and compete with these nations in this economy, global economy, then we needed to pool our populations. I mean, you can't go to Liberia or go to Gambia with 5 million people and you really think, you know, like Atukwe Okan once said, he said, looks like we were all in a house, one house, and then some armed robber came to the gate and fired a gun, a shot, and everybody ran into the nearest room. Some people ran into the kitchen, some people ran into the washroom, others ran into the bedroom. And within the bedroom, they now want to develop everything. They will develop their kitchen in the bedroom, develop their washrooms in the bedroom, and all kind of things. So that's exactly what happened. And that was the vision Nkrumah had. But his level of intensity clearly was misconstrued. Again, sometimes I wonder whether this unity he was talking about could really emanate from the top, from where the top-down approach, or whether it should be the bottom-top approach. Mm-hmm. I have sat and listened to President Kufuor. He has a definitely different approach to our unity, mm-hmm. and he thinks that is more realistic than the top-down approach. When you start with the leaders, you may have a union of presidents and the elite, but you cannot get the people to, you know. But if you start from the bottom, eventually the top will come together. Those are different approaches that different leaders have espoused. I don't think in our generation we can achieve that. Even 16 member union like ECOWAS, we still have difficulties coming together with our barriers and currency and the rest of it, not to talk about 52 or so countries on the continent. That is still very far away from now.
Let's watch a clip from the Independence Day today, obviously, the President's speech.
You've heard me say on a number of occasions, I'm a man in a hurry, but I'm also a realistic man. To get to a Ghana beyond aid, we will have to harness effectively our own resources and deploy them creatively and efficiently for rapid economic and social transformation. As I said in the Independence Day address last year, this will require, quote, hard work, enterprise, creativity, and a consistent fight against corruption in public life, unquote. It also will require that we break from a mentality of dependency and adopt a confident can-do spirit fueled by love for our dear country, Ghana. We cannot subordinate the common good to build a prosperous nation to the selfish interests of a few. Moving beyond Ghana beyond aid means ensuring that future generations of Ghanaians have a healthy environment to inherit. The primary requirement for prosperity is peace. The first obligation on any government is to ensure the safety and security of the citizenry. As your president, this is an obligation I accept, and I am determined to discharge faithfully. The recent spate of armed robberies is totally unacceptable. I will work to ensure the citizens are able to go about their daily duties in the confidence that they are safe. No miscreant will have the space to terrorize citizens and generate a sense of insecurity in our country.
Well, that was the president there, Ghana Beyond Aid. And as I said, you have to dream big, start talk about it, and hopefully you get there. It's always said when Kennedy said they were going to go to the moon, he had no clue how he was going to get there, but at least he started dreaming about it. I was going to ask a question, but let's go to this. Is it good rhetoric? Look, I don't know how I'm going to take you beyond aid, but that's what we want to do. Let's all start thinking about how we move Ghana beyond aid.
Nana, I've heard the president talk about Ghana beyond aid. What I'm not too sure about is it a project or it's a slogan? I don't know what it is yet. If it is Ghana beyond aid, is it a project? If it's a project, then it means we will have a time action plan to the project. Then we know that perhaps it's going to take us 20 years, 30 years, 50 years to achieve Ghana beyond aid. Or is it a proclamation? Is it a statement that we are making that we are beginning to see Ghana beyond aid, and then we are beginning to envision what it will look like to be on our own without any aid? Is that what we are talking about? Or is this just a slogan? I don't know what it is. I've heard it several times, but to be honest with you, I don't know exactly what it is. If it's a project, then we all need to be brought into the project so we can own the project. We can work together towards Ghana beyond aid. That project should be clearly spelled out. What are the steps? Step 1, step 2, step 3. Who are going to be involved? How relevant will Mr. Awuni be to this project? And what role am I going to play? What role are you going to play? What role will the media play? What role will the parliament play? What role would the farmers play? So we know that we are working towards something, and then we have a time limit by which we can say, well, this is where we expect to be. If that's the project, good, but then we need to be told. If it's a slogan, okay, I think it's a nice catchphrase. But if it's also, a dream, that dream is not new. That's precisely what Osagyefo talked about. And every other president has talked about the need for us to divorce ourselves from the kind of things that we are currently going through. So we need to be told exactly what this whole thing is about, then how we can also get involved into it, get involved in it.
All dreams, all ideas will start with a slogan or a phrase. As Obama will say, everything was just talk. I had a dream was talk. When Martin Luther King said, I had a dream, I didn't think he ever envisaged that, probably this level of equal rights would ever be achieved in America. But he just said, look, this is my dream. Yeah. So I'm just asking, as a leader, it's a big and almost impossible dream.
When Martin Luther talked about his dream, he marched for the dream, right? In fact, he got killed for the dream. So there were steps he actually took to make sure that that dream became a reality. When Obama gave his famous speech, which eventually led him to stand and to become president, he walked it. I'm saying that if we have a project, let us know what this project is, what the project will be, what will be involved in this project, how relevant each sector of the society would be to the project. What are the timelines for this project? How do we arrive? But you see, to be honest with you, I think it is possible only when we begin to speak the truth to one another. When we begin to tell the nation the truth. And that, it appears, politicians are not willing to tell people the truth, to tell the population the truth.
Is it not too...
For example,
too hard?
No, yeah, it's hard, but that's the only way. You can't talk about Ghana beyond aid when your 2018 budget has a component of donor support in it. And you say, well, this is the trend. This is what we've always done. But you've got to cut down certain things. You see, you must cut your coat according to your cloth, right? That thing has to be told Ghanaians. I've said this many times, and people think, well, a budget you always have to go and get money from somewhere. Somebody's got to tell Ghanaians that for the year 2018, our total revenue is going to be what? 3 billion Ghana cedis. How do we share it? How much should we send to health? How much should we send to education? And let people know. And let people accept. You see, this donor, for example, let me be controversial here. Take the military, take customs, take immigration, take prisons, fire service, the police. Ask yourself, for how long are we going to collect boots from abroad, from some imperialist manufacturer, since independence? Have you asked yourself why every minister of defense, every minister of interior, every minister under whom all these agencies exist and work cannot break that thing? We collect as much as the peps on their shoulders, we import them. Their belts, we import them. And that has been going on for 60 years now since we became independent. Have you asked yourself why we are not able to break this? And to talk about aid. So you see, if we really want to do what we profess to want to do, we may have to take a break somewhere and tell the whole country. Tell the whole country. I had the opportunity to go work with Kenya Commercial Bank in 1995. I was really surprised when I got into Nairobi and to Kenya Commercial Bank. Everybody there was driving Peugeot 504. We were driving in some of the flashiest cars in this country. When I got into the bank, the computers that were sitting on everybody's table were the IBMs. You remember those early day IBM machines? Those were the IBM machines. And yet, in terms of the financial sector, Kenya had was miles ahead of us. They were already a cashless society. When they were already doing ATMs, we did not even have mobile phones yet in this country. And yet we were driving the flashiest cars. Our officials were driving the flashiest cars. I was coming from a state bank. I knew what our directors were driving at. I got to Kenya Commercial Bank and I could see that they were miles ahead of us in that particular sector where we are all in. At that time, they had ATMs. You could walk to an ATM machine and take one in 95. We didn't even have mobile phones here. And yet we had flashy computers sitting on every director's desk here in Ghana. I'm saying that if we really want to be true to ourselves, we will have to lock all of us into this country one of these days and let the finance minister put the budget down and tell everybody that we have only 3 billion for the year 2018. How are we going to spend it? But if you can't do that, and then you go and collect money. You collect money. And the money they are bringing, they always come with conditions. And I'm not talking IMF now. I'm even talking about bilateral. They come with conditions. They will come and tell you that they support themselves. When an American company comes here, the whole American government backs that company, even though it's a private company. When a British company comes here, private company, the whole British Empire backs that company. And when you do anything wrong to that company in Ghana here, the first people who will attack you will be the government of America, not that private company. That's how they work. So it's a properly knit society built together. If we're going to talk about these things, yes, we can make the headlines. We can say them and get the headlines.
You think we should bite the bullet if we really want to get out of it?
I think so. I actually expected this government to take us all back to Saint when they took over on the 7th of January. I expected this government to take all of us back to Saint and to tell us how we arrived at that IMF program. What really went wrong? Because there was no earthquake in this country. There was no war in this country. What really went wrong? And open the books and show to everybody. I expected this government to do that. Today, there's confusion as to what was actually bequeathed. Do you understand that? It is our fault. Why would you keep the books close to yourselves and just say it with your mouth? What is wrong with spending 1 month and opening the books from ministry to ministry? Now you go and sit down and say, roads, we owe 17 billion. Who's going to believe you? If you, all you needed was 3 to 4 weeks in Senchi, and let every minister come and give. They were handing over notes. Open the books. How did we arrive here? Then we can tell the Ghanaian people. Then the leaders themselves will be first to be willing to sacrifice. I worked at the presidency, and I know that the presidency never suffers when it comes to money. We are the first people to be served. We were the first people to be served. And that has to break. I went to went with President Kufuor to Holland. He went to address the parliament, and outside parliament there were bicycles all over. All the MPs arrived at parliament riding bicycles. Oh. When they close, they come and unchain their bicycles, and off they go with their briefcases hanging on the
side of the bicycle.
Yeah. There are things you need to do when you really want. You see, that's why you went to school. Okay? That's why you had to take the discipline to go and sit in a class. Go through to P6, go to secondary school, go to whatever school you want to go. But if you were just thrust into the society to start enjoying yourself, you cannot be sitting where you are sitting today. There is always a period for investment. A period of investment, not just for the individual, but the nation as well.
You're almost calling for a fresh independence.
I am saying that a 61-year-old grandfather cannot learn new tricks. You cannot teach a 61-year-old grandfather new tricks. And when the foundations are rotten, what can the righteous do? Are we going to dig up this whole foundation and start building again? What is really going to happen? What is it that we're really talking about? I don't know. I have no idea. Fortunately, I don't have to make the decisions.
Well, I've written the question down, so I rather still have to ask, because I was just going to say that, after 61 years, there's still, maybe there's a small proportion who would have wished that there's still white rule. There's a dangerous proportion who thinks, look, bring the military back in. What does it speak of our independence if, after all these years, there are people who say, look, what, just take me back to captivity? Or just, look, get the military to come in, because the lawlessness and everything, because if you get your independence, the last thing anybody within an independent state would have wished was where they came from to enjoy independence. But to be enjoying independence and wishing that, no, we dear, what does it say?
Well, it reminds me of the people of Israel and their leader Moses and the difficulties they had in the wilderness. Of course, when you are faced with difficulties, you always want to look back and say, look, take me back, But nobody should ever think that staying under colonial rule would have been better than where we are today. That I remember in 1990, I happened to be on Baker Street working in a little restaurant called Mayfair Library Restaurant in London. And I was doing dishes in this kitchen. And there was a transistor radio in the kitchen. And it was playing, the radio was on. And whilst I was doing the dishes, somebody announced over the radio, today is the 6th of March. I didn't know. I had forgotten that it was 6th of March. He says, today is the 6th of March, and it's the Independence Day of Ghana. And when I heard Ghana, the plate dropped in the sink, and tears started rolling down my cheeks. I cried. I said, today is my country's Independence Day, and I came here voluntarily. Look what I'm doing. I started crying. Nobody understood. Of course, I didn't lift my head so anybody would see. But I'm saying that nobody should wish that we remained. What really we should look at is how we can repair whatever damage has been done. And I think that the only way we can begin to repair, you see, if you don't open up to your partner at home, you can never repair any damage. If you are not willing to open up your books and tell everybody, and also be the first as the leader of the house to make those sacrifices, then you are not going to start to change anything. If you go back home and you say, from this day forth, there's not going to be our everyday KFC. We have to stop this KFC we do every day. We have to stop. And then the woman asks you why. You must have to open the books, and you will have to stop that one beer every evening as leader. If you don't open up, and that's what I think we haven't done in this country. And for those who wish that, I've heard people who say that this two-party system is not working for Africa. Because at the moment, I think that along the line, we may have to change the system, because it appears we are looking for every conceivable way to destroy the democracy. We are looking for it. When you look at what happens at intra-party level, you see, and sometimes people think that when it's happening in intra-party, in NDC, and they are doing ways and means, it is for them. No. It will be projected on the national stage. Don't make a mistake about it. What happens at the intra-party level will eventually be projected on the national stage. So don't think that it is an MPP matter or NDC matter. And I think that the path we have chosen, we will destroy this democracy. Maybe those who gave it to us should be looking for a new one for us. I heard this morning people calling for union government. The union government Achampon tried to introduce, and they think that should have been the... Even in this fourth Republican constitutional era, I've heard people talk about power sharing, which again tells you this idea of union government. In fact, it is in the bill, in the drafting of the fourth Republican Constitution, all these issues, that's how come we had this Council of State thing. And even President Kufuor was asking for a second chamber. What kind of people was he expecting to be put in the chamber? A certain category of people who would have been part of that union government that some people talked about. I'm not canvassing for union government. I'm just saying that these are the arguments that people have started making. And from my observation, I think we are destroying the two-party system which has been introduced in this country. I wonder if it can last beyond 50 years, the way we are going. And therefore, those who unless we really sit up and change, morality is one, sincerity, honesty, righteousness, those things. Now you can do anything. You can catch all your delegates and go and lock them up and make sure your opponent doesn't get close to your delegates. And when you win, you have won. And that is fine with everybody. Does that make sense to you? Does that make sense to you? And everybody thinks, well, that's the way we do it. Is that how they do it? Those who brought it to you, is that the way they do it? Somebody can carry the forms and say, you want the form, you can't get it. I won't give you. And that is part of the democracy. And then at the end of the day, he wins. And that is acceptable.
But the argument is that we are progressing. We are, for a country, 61 years is a bit young, and therefore, maybe we are getting there.
61 is not young. Like,
for a country, for a human, maybe old. Yeah. For a country, apparently it's young.
No, we are not 61 years old. We are only 61 when we were told that we were now independent from. So, yes. But even, I always ask the question, how many years did it take for Germany to rise from the ashes of the Second World War? How many years? Germany. Yeah. How many years did it take them to rise out of the ashes of the Second World War? How many years did it take Japan after Hiroshima? How many years did it take them to rise out of that atomic bomb? So there's no justification. I'm saying that if we truly want to progress, we all have to go for a conference. We all have to open the books up for everybody. We may have to build a wall like China did. We may have to lock ourselves in. And when we are ready for the world, we open up for the world. That's not to say that we do not need anything. We will need certain essentials. We will need certain essentials. Let me tell you, now everybody's crying, Ghana rice, Ghana rice, Ghana rice. You think Ghanaians are ever going to eat rice produced from Katanga anymore? You think they're going to do that? No. That's a dream. Because every kid in this country has gotten used to sultana, has gotten used to all those funny names that are imported. You are not going to introduce something new to the person. It has become a culture because you open up. If you really want the Ghanaian to eat the Ghanaian rice, you should have locked him up and stopped that rice from coming in and give him his own rice. By the time the white man will bring his rice, he won't like it. But after he has eaten that rice from age 1, now he's 20, and you say stop and eat local rice from Katanga Valley. You think it's going to work? I'm saying that these things are not by accident. They are
in a global world. I mean, you know, Gaddafi has suffered it, Mugabe has suffered it. Anytime you go for that sort of protectionism or pro your country or stuff, they'll descend down on you. The international world descend down, and AU will sit back and watch you.
You see, that's why you said we started in 57. We could have started slowly. We start slowly, and then we build up. We start slowly. By now, at least we would have had one product that is of national character. One. At least one staple of national character that we all can identify with and we all can get from this land. At least. We could have had one or two. So how did the rest do it? President Kufuor used to advise all of us, look, the way to go is to learn from others. Don't try to isolate yourself. But that does not mean that you should, because especially when you don't have the competitive advantage and you open up, you become a slave because you will go along with them. You will go along with them. But at least if you are able to hem yourself in, not exactly cutting yourself out. That's why I asked the question, why did the Chinese build the wall? Why did they build the wall? Why did they wait until they solved certain basic issues before they began to talk about football and began to talk about...
In 2018, could the Chinese have built a wall? I mean, because of information, because of computers, the world has literally become one.
So now it's difficult to build a wall. You can't build a wall now. You cannot build a wall
metaphorically.
Now. Metaphorically. Yeah. You can't build a wall now. But, and I have told you right from the onset, I told you that over the years, we did not do anything to loosen the knots that were tight. Right from day one. Before these people left, they dug certain things and put them there. They're taking hold of certain major levers. You've got to make sure. And sometimes they even come here and collect our money to do that for us. It becomes a big fight. And so if you don't do it the way they want you to do it, they take, America is giving us 540 for energy. It has been signed. Do you know what goes with that? Do you know what goes with that? The Chinese, if I tell you the struggle President Kufuor had to go through before he got buoyed down, at a point, Chinese people started calling him Buidam. Because anytime he met with them, Buidam will come out of his mouth. So they started calling him Buidam.
That's what he was going to talk
But do you know what it took? It took several tons of cocoa in exchange before they will give you the loan. Do you understand? These are the knots I'm talking about that we should have started untying. And I'm saying that if you don't tell your child that they have only 10 CDs in my pocket, so today you can go with only 1 CD. If you don't tell the person, and your son must also be sure that you yourself are going by it. But we are not willing to do that. We come and we make promises, and then we add on. Today, the IMF is talking about the need for us to do a new revenue mobilization plan for this country. And they are asking us to increase our revenue by a certain percentage point. How are you going to do that? So you've got to introduce stamps. You've got to introduce some new things. Meantime, I'm very proud of our finance minister because I know him quite well, and I think that when it comes to financial engineering, he is special. That's the only reason why we are where we are today. That's the only reason why we are where we are today. I would have said that from the 7th of January 2017, we all should have been sent to the stadium and let everybody open the books, from health to roads, to education, to every place. And then we tell each other the truth. And then if we all have to go and borrow Kantanka's vehicles for our president to drive in, then we know we are really serious. Then we know we are really serious.
We are not biting the bullet enough.
No, we are not. You see, and we think that we can throw out slogans and then get the media to, you know, these are all things that we're just rehashing. Nothing is new.
In theory, you think truth would make our independence a bit more meaningful to us?
Yes, because then you know that you have to wear this your shoe you bought last year. You can't change it this next year. You have to wear it for the next 2 years before you can save enough money to buy the next shoe. If you tell yourself that truth, but when you don't do that, come next year, new vehicles will be arriving at the port.
Big question, but only 30 seconds to answer. Because of our political divide, if you came and told the truth, I then say, you see, he can't manage the economy. That's why he's saying that. And so, you also don't want to.
Yeah, that's the dishonesty about politics. Today, the government, the PURC, reduces electricity tariffs, and they say, why reduce electricity tariffs? You are compromising the independence of PURC. And then at the beginning of the year, the same people who are saying this said, oh, you promised to reduce electricity. So where are you going with that? I mean, if this is what we're going to do, forget it. Nobody should trust any of these people. No. At the beginning of the year, you said the man promised to reduce. Why is he not reducing? Today he has reduced. Hey, why are you reducing? PURC, you are compromising your... You understand? And until we begin to, and I'm saying that's what I'm saying, that if we don't do anything about our politics, about the way we go about it, there's too much dishonesty. Too much dishonesty.
Too much dishonesty, and in the words of my senior brother Andrew Awuni, the truth, the hard truth, would at least make our independence more meaningful. If we earn a CD, we spend a CD. It's been wonderful. Happy Independence Day to one and all. But we'll be back to do this all over again. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much. It's been interesting.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.